Well, we have one last quadrant we're going to look at before we take our assessments. And then we'll look at what you are specifically. And so that's our C quadrant. Now, why do we say C for the last? Well, C's are the cautious, contemplative, and competent quadrant. And we saved C for last because, quite frankly, if we would have done it earlier, they wouldn't know if they were C's or not because they wanted to hear everybody else's to make sure that wasn't them. Now, they know they're not D's or I's, but there's potential they could have been. And so we wait to see. We do D's first because they just want to know it. C's because they want to have all the detail around everybody else. And that's what we love about our friends that are C's. They love working alone. Now, they're about 25% of the population, too. So give them the assignment, and the best thing you can do is just slowly back away, and they will complete it. But don't come up, hey, how you doing on that? You guys doing good? Do you need help with that? You broke my concentration. Thanks. Thanks for ruining it. Now, back away slowly and leave the room, right? And so C's basic mantra is, the details will show you the truth. The truth shall set you free with the details, right? And really it is. It's all about the detail. I will give you the details. I will show you the facts. I will show you the figures. And my friend D, I will show you why you're wrong, which is exactly what the D does not want to hear. And so they desire a very consistent environment. They love consistency. Like our S's, right? They're more reserved. And so they don't want change. And so when the D says, here's the next hill we're going to take, C, go do it. Right? Or, hey, I've been working on all this because you said this is the hill we're going to take. Oh, yeah, that was last week. I've already moved on. This is the hill now. So that work was a waste of time. Thank you. Because it always will take longer than a D or an I wants it to take. Always. And sometimes it may never finish because there's always more detail you can find. And so they want that consistent. They also want clearly defined tasks. So if you say, hey, I'm thinking about this, whatever this might be, so if you could just make sure that's going to work, that'd be great. Well, what is this? I don't know. I'm just it's in my head. I was just thinking, a whole new direction. Maybe we should do this. Well, what would that look like? Okay, look, you're the one with the detail. Okay, you figure that part out. Well, I don't have enough detail to define the task, right? So helping them have a clearly defined task. If you give them a broad, big picture, 20,000-foot view and say, now go figure it out, that's not what they want. That's not going to help them. And so you want to help them. They also want limited risks. They don't want to take a big risk. They don't want to come up with, look, everything hinges on what you come up with, whether we make a multi-million-dollar deal or not. It's like, I don't want that pressure. That's your pressure, right? And if it doesn't work, who's the D going to blame? Not themselves, because they were right. They're going to come back to the C and say, you gave me bad data. Ooh. Them fighting words. That's when the knuckles crack, and the horns come out. Yeah, and so they also like specialization, where both S's and C's says, give me my thing. This is my sandbox, and I will play in it. And they like time to process. Again, like our S's, they want to have that time. So if there's going to be a change, how's this going to impact me? And so they're not going to look at the relationship as much. They're instead going to say, what task do I need to change? How's this going to impact what I do on my consistent process? My task list is now may look different. I don't like that. And they like precision tasks, things that are really going to be beyond the basic. I have a great friend who is in finance, and he's a contractor. So he goes to all these different places and works, and this company brought him in and really didn't know what to do with him, but they had money to hire a contractor, and they knew he was good, so they brought him in. And so he's down there, and he's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, well, if you could just do these basic spreadsheets. And he's like, you're paying me this amount of money to do this? This is a waste of your time, and I feel bad taking it. Now, others would be like, score, this is easy. Not the way C's thinks. They want the hard stuff. So he actually started creating hard stuff for him to do, for himself, and said, hey, I'm thinking, what if we did this projection? They're like, whoa. Are you trying to take my job? Because the D is like, I'm the leader here, right? Because he's like, I just need something to do. Well, That's not what I gave you to do. Now go back and do what I gave. It's a very, very difficult thing. So compliance, get the work done carefully. However, compliance need to be willing to just be done with the project sometimes. Which I know any Caesar are going, you can't just be done. It's got to be done right. And there's different levels of right. All right, so now our happy face, this again looks different. Now you only see one happy face, and you actually don't see the whole thing because there's some weeds there. And what makes them happy is being down in the weeds. Leave me alone, let me get her done, and when I'm done, I'll come back and tell you what it is. So they respond best to factual reassurance. Not, hey, I appreciate you, buddy. It's, hey, I love those numbers. Those were spot on. That's factual reassurance. Detailed plans. This is what it's going to look like. Time to adjust to the changes. Structured environment are all things that are going to help us succeed and help your projects get done well. And in family, the same thing. If you have kids this way or a spouse this way, giving them time to process. And mistakes that I've made is I don't always do that because I'm high change. I've had recent conversations about that. Growth areas. Sometimes it is just good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's good enough. It's a projection. We don't know for sure. Deadlines mean stop. If we say this is Tuesday, it's all the time you have, and you know that if you had till Thursday, you could do a whole nother set of something or other. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a mantra there. It's like just keep saying it. Maybe you'll eventually believe it. And then other people do matter. That does matter. Again, relationships are not a liability to you completing your job. Oftentimes you do need help. And it's okay to ask for help. Optimism is not a bad word. It isn't. It's a good word. It's okay to be optimistic. A lot of times our C's tend to be very pessimistic because they're looking at the numbers going, I don't know how we're going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. God oftentimes is bigger than that. The answer is not always in the data. Sometimes you do have to go with your gut. And it may not make sense on some level. Now, if it makes complete nonsense, but sometimes moving beyond. And then relaxation can recharge a person. Oftentimes for C's and a lot of times our D's, relaxation means let's have another task. And sometimes the best thing to do is to have no tasks. Have a 0 task list, or the single task is relax and don't do anything. I can tell you, my wife and I see that very differently. We took this one day, we're like, this is our recharge day, we're not going to do anything, we have no tasks. Like, yes. So I'm hanging out on my iPad, and she's like, oh, by the way, I thought we cleaned the refrigerator today. I'm like, that's not relaxing at all. And it's like, well, I need to go grocery shopping. We don't have any food in there. Now's the perfect time to clean it out. And we don't have any other time. That's not fun, but we got it done. So a couple of verses to live by. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Now, let me go, boy, I don't know if it's a C if I have all those, but you can if you feel that the numbers are being attacked or people want you to work more in a team than you really want to. It's easy to hold on to that as C's and get angry about it. Instead, okay, we're going to still do this. Do not fret because of those who are evil or be envious of those who do wrong. Sometimes we can get that way, that it seems like people just, they're wrong on their numbers. They're wrong on this. And a C can get very, this is the way it is, very concrete, like our D's, but even more so. Like they're slow dry concrete, right? But when it's concrete, D's will move faster than a C in changing it. And so if they have a perceived wrong, they're going to hold that grudge. And I know people that held that grudge for years, right? In these verses, don't fret about that. Focus on God. Focus on what the Spirit can do in your life. So a couple biblical examples, and one of these, I feel bad. It's one we always use, or a lot of times we use for C's, is Thomas. And who knows who Thomas is? Anybody? Yeah. Thomas? What do you know about Thomas?
Well, that he was doubting.
Yeah, that's what we call him. He's doubting Thomas. You know what's sad, though? If you look at this passage, because he was a disciple of Jesus, right? After the resurrection, here's what we always forget. Jesus appeared to the disciples where they touched his wounds. And then he was gone. Then Thomas came in. Like, the Lord was here. He's like, well, I'll believe that if I get to touch his wounds. Well, see, he doubted. Well, they did the same thing, but he wanted the same level of detail they got. He wasn't just going to believe somebody else's opinion on that, even though these are people he traveled with, right? And then Hannah. Who knows who Hannah is?
Was she the mother of Samuel?
Very nice. Yes, mother of Samuel. She also was told she's advanced in age and you're going to have a baby. She's like, I'll give him to the Lord. She did. She prayed for a child. God, for a long, long time. That consistency that we see in a sea, right? And then she has this baby and says, all right, here you go. He's yours now. Just gave him away. Not just gave him away. Still his mom, but basically went and Samuel became this great prophet for the Lord. So those are a couple of examples. So a couple of the good stuff, or some good stuff. They do the work first. Very meticulous. If a sea gives you something that says, this is good to go, you can know that it is good to go. You can trust it. They're very thoughtful in the way they do things. Not thoughtful like, oh, it's Mother's Day. Not that kind of thoughtful, but thoughtful, and they're going to process it well.
They like lists too, right?
Oh, they love lists. Yeah.
List checkers.
They're going to have the D is going to have like 6 things maybe on the list. The C is going to have like a list of 20 things, and that's where that combination we were talking earlier. But they tend to be rigid. So the D can say, well, I will get this done tomorrow. The C's like, no. When I will go to bed when this is done. I can't go to bed, and this is the rule. And legalistic. And then sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees. They don't like to see the big picture, so they don't look for it. But then they get so caught down in the minutia of the detail that they lose sight of what's really important. When we work with couples on this, we'll talk about this and say, what's your overarching goal? Where are you? Where are you trying to get to? And don't lose sight of that, because you can have things you put in place, but if it's not getting you to that eventual goal, then you're wasting your time. So, who knows a C? What are some good things about our friends who are C's?
They will get the job done.
They will get it done.
With the right amount of instruction and detail.
I like the caveats he just put in there. Sorry, with the right amount of instruction and detail. If you don't give it, then they won't get the job done. That's your fault, not theirs. Okay, good. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Probably going to be right.
They're probably going to be right.
Because they've really analyzed it.
Yep.
I work with majority. I work with engineers and finance people.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm a great throw into that group.
You're a bomb in the middle of the group, aren't you?
Yeah, because I'm the fun in the group. But, I mean, really, the more detail I can give them, even if we're doing something fun, it's got to have all the detail.
Yep.
Like we're going to a Rangers game. Like, bam, we're going to pick the bus up at this time. We're going to do this. Your tickets here. You did this.
Wow.
If I don't give them all that, they're not comfortable.
That's a great adaptation to them. Good job.
Yep.
Wow.
That's good. Yeah, and so giving them the detail, giving them the process.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What are some other good things?
They're reliable.
Yep. Reliable. That's great. What else? What are some negatives? Perceived negatives. We'll say perceived, right?
They don't like change.
Don't want to change.
Do not erase a task off their board.
Don't erase the board. Don't touch the board. Don't touch the board.
Don't touch it.
That's good. What did you say, Cliff?
They hold your feet to the fire.
Hold your feet to the fire. You said this. They'll quote it.
Yeah.
Right there. Right here, on this date, at this time, in this setting, you were wearing this. Yep. They're going to hold it. That's good. What else? What are some negatives? Which also could be a positive, but it can be perceived as a negative. We don't want to remember it. Get into the weeds.
They're down there. They're in the weeds, and so trying to pull them out of the weeds a little bit to see.
That's hard.
Back to the overarching goal.
Good.
Along with that, when they think they're right, they're hard to convince otherwise.
Yeah, that rigidity.
And they don't like to be interrupted.
No, they don't.
They're in a thought process and then they get interrupted.
There's a high C that I used to work with that she would talk about the bubble. And she had a cube, so she didn't have an office, so she had a bubble that she would place herself in, not literal bubble. But it was a proverbial, and she couldn't hear. She didn't want to hear. And if you went in and you knocked on her cube, she would ignore you. And she had little signs, I'm in the bubble. And that meant leave her alone. She's not going to respond. And then she would change the sign. She's out of the bubble. So, hey, did you stop over earlier? Yeah, great. What do you need? Because now she's ready to engage, right? Good. Well, these are all, again, and even as negatives really, even though I'm not a C, really seem like a lot could be positive, but the rigidity specifically can also be negative. Well, good. Well, you guys have done a great job. Who's excited to find out what you are? Now, before we do that, what I want you to do is write down what you think you are. So, D, I, S, or C, or if you think you're a blend, based on what we've talked about.